Live from the ValdostaHomeSales.com studios, it is The Running Theory with Rick and Rob.
Are we back?
Oh, yes.
We're back.
I'm hoping everything is going the way it's supposed to be going. Yes, it looks like we're on YouTube.
Awesome.
And we are streaming on Facebook. And so we are live here on a Monday afternoon.
Absolutely. All that worrying, man. And here we are. We seem to pull it off.
Well, the show's not over yet.
Well, it's not over, man. It's going to be fun. This was the hurdle right here, I think.
But you know what? Lord willing, everything will go as planned today.
Well, you know, there's a torrential downpour when I was driving up here. I said, oh, my gosh, the weather's going to be terrible.
Yeah, we had to drive. My father went to pick up my youngest, or my middle child, not my youngest, my middle child, and they had to pull over on the side of the road because it was raining so hard here in Valdosta.
It was coming down super hard, yeah.
But we are here, and we got a wonderful guest today.
Oh, man, I'm so excited. I can't tell you how excited I am.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about what happened to us this past week. You been running?
I have been running. I ran yesterday. Well, it came up, and last week I took 2 days off. I took Friday and Saturday off.
Right. And you felt great Sunday.
You know what? It's one of those things that I think I felt the same.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a balance to taking off, I think, because sometimes you take off too much, sometimes you take off too little.
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't feel really good about myself Friday because I should have actually ran because I didn't take off because I was tired. I just took off because I was lazy.
Yeah, life kind of got in the way.
Yeah, and so maybe sometimes you need that extra 5 minutes of sleep.
Yeah, I think occasionally you do. You know, we had a good run Sunday morning though.
But
we
I was
6 miles. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I had fun. I had a good time. And today it was still super humid, but I hear, which the weatherman's never right, but I hear by the end of this week, we will be in the 60s.
I've been hearing that for weeks. I hope you're right. Or whoever said that, I hope they're right. Because I am ready for some cooler weather. Can you hear me?
Oh,
better.
We're not on the main camera. We are, okay. There we go.
Okay, all right.
Maybe I flipped us off, and we were one of those technical difficulties. Yes.
For nothing?
Okay. Well, Charlie Mizell, he just texted in, and he said that I can hear you, but but y'all no live in the studio.
Okay, as long as they can
we're
hear
up
us.
Now, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. We appreciate it. Charlie always keeps us straight, and he keeps us honest. I appreciate that. Now, I want to tell you, I HK'd for the first time in years. And for all of you that don't know what HK is, that's just a little inside joke with several of our running group. It's a tribute to our friend of ours, Heather Kelly. But she went through a season where she fell a lot while she was running, and so we kind of just coined that an HK. So every time we fall now, we call it the HK. And I haven't fallen in years, but I was running Wednesday, and I was actually at the end of a 6 mile run. And we always finish up on the track to make it 6 miles. And when I was running in, there's just a little stub, like a little concrete thing sticking up in the ground where maybe a sign or something. I ran over that thing a million times. And for whatever reason, I just didn't pick my feet up the other night, and I hit the ground.
So was it one of these delayed falls where you're like slow motion, like, oh.
Man, I hit the ground before I even knew it.
Or was it one of these, I'm rolling on the ground and I don't know what happened?
No, I fell flat down. I scarred my hands up, busted my knee up. But, I got right back up and just kept on running. It's one of those things, it was so shocking that I didn't realize what had happened until I actually just kind of finished my lap on the track. But there was no damage or anything. It was just, you just hate to fall. But.
Yeah, well, people were pointing and laughing. Look at the old guy. Yeah. He done fell down.
I kind of closed myself off to any of that. If people were laughing, I didn't even notice. But, it would have been a good laugh, I'm sure.
Well, you know what? That's one of my worries because your wife actually broke her ankle on a run
several
one time.
years ago she did. And, yeah, that was tough.
And I don't ever worry about me falling. I worry about somebody that I'm with falling.
Yeah.
And me having to take care of them. Is that bad?
Yeah, you don't want to say. You have to run back. You worry about having to run back to the car.
Right,
exactly. Right?
Exactly. But should we bring in our guest?
Man, we should. Let me go ahead and give him an introduction here. Let me get this back up. And I hope I don't flood this up because I have to admit, Rob, I'm super excited about this. I mean, when we reached out to this gentleman and he said yes, I was super pumped. And I think you were too. I mean,
because, definitely.
I mean, we had the honor this evening of speaking with a running legend. And, I'm going to say a few things. I don't want to say too much because I may not be right about all this. But this gentleman is a running legend. He was a 72 Olympian in the 10,000 meters. He was the winner of the first Peachtree Road Race which means a lot to me because I love to run that race. And I say it's a phenomenal race. You know, he's a key organizer in that race. He's written several books on training. He's contributed to Running World magazine. You know, and first and foremost, the guy is just a motivator, and he's just a running enthusiast. And he just inspires all of us. So, you know, we want to welcome Jeff Galloway to Running Theory.
Jeff Galloway. Can you hear us, Jeff? Oh, let's see. I'm hoping. Wait just 1 second. Oh.
Hey, Jeff.
Let's see. Okay, wait just 1 second. He can. Why does it do this? Let's see. Wait just 1 second.
We are not masters at this.
Okay, let's see. The last time I did,
You got to hold your face just right, Rob.
yeah. Okay. Let's see if we can do it just like. Oh, Lord. Okay. Yes, we hear it. Okay. Now we can hear. Now I think we could hear Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Oh, no. Now he can't hear us. Okay. Can you hear us now, Jeff?
I can hear you now.
Oh,
All right.
yes.
Thank you for bearing with us.
Not a problem.
Hey, man, we are so excited about having you. Got a million questions for you. We won't keep you all evening, but we just got a lot of things to ask you. First of all, just thanks for taking your time out of the evening and just, you know, spend a little bit of time with us. We're a small town operation, like I told you in my first outreach to you, and you know, guys, just so exciting to have you on here. What I thought we'd ask you, Jeff, to kind of get started is that, you know, everybody knows who you are, but I was wondering if you kind of go all the way back to the beginning when you realized that that you're a runner. When you said, "Hey, you know, I'm pretty good at this, and I'm going to pursue it," and you kind of when did that start? And do you have a lot of people encouraging you to do so? What was the running world like back then, and what got you going?
Well, actually, I wasn't very good. I started running because my father had been in the Navy. He got out in 1958, and I was entering the 8th grade. And the new school where I was enrolled required boys to go out for athletics after school. I had not done any of that. I had gone to 13 schools because we had moved from place to place, never gotten into a sport. And I was way overweight. I was lazy. I didn't really like exertion. And my story is really one that gives hope to a lot of people who are beginning and don't think that they have any chance of making progress, and of kids who don't seem to have any talent at all. I went, it wasn't until my senior year, after 5 hard years of running, that I qualified to go to the state championship in Georgia. So it was, I was not one that showed any promise during the first few years. But what happened was, as soon as I got in with that group of cross-country runners in that very first year in the 8th grade, the bonding that occurred and the way that my brain and body felt after the workout was just a life changer. And it still is to this day. I look forward to every single run, and I get immense amount out of it. Even if I don't feel that great during the run, my brain and my spirit are really on fire afterwards.
So you're pretty avid runner even today.
Yes, I average around 5-6 miles a day now, and I run several times a day. It's my recess period to rev up the brain throughout the day rather than sitting at my computer all day long.
Definitely. So when you got into running, you found out you were pretty good in high school. I mean, you saw that you were winning things and things were looking like you had a future in it.
Well, I didn't really do anything until my senior year, but in my senior year, I finally qualified to go to the state championships in Georgia, and I I won the 2 mile in a come from behind type of race, which actually turned out to be a blueprint for a number of other races in which I ran internationally, a come from behind type of finish, which of course is very exciting for me. And it was pretty simple. I couldn't run fast enough to stay up with the leaders in the beginning, and so I uh, I had resources left at the end when the others had spent them. So it was really now to fast forward a bit and give you cliff notes. I went to a small liberal arts college for my collegiate career where they did not have scholarships, and I got a little bit better over 4 years. But the most remarkable thing at this small school that only had 1,200 students, including graduate students, is that the year behind me, a fellow enrolled named Amby Burfoot, who during his senior year, Amby won the Boston Marathon. And no other collegiate athlete has ever done that. And then a couple of years later, when I was a senior, we were joined by a fellow named Bill Rogers. And all three of us were there at the same time, but it was serendipitous because we came there for academic reasons. And we have been fast friends ever since.
Sounds like you've been in good company. Let me ask you.
So you have a college with 1,200 students who has 3 world-class athletes and no athletic scholarships.
That's right. And, it says a lot about running that the type of caliber of academic persons that you find in cross-country running is a much higher level than you find in other sports. And so that type of a kid is looking for a better experience in college. And I've really met a lot of other runners who started out the same way I did and ended up doing quite well at small liberal arts schools.
So after you did that, you decided to join the Navy. Is that correct?
Yeah, or it decided to join me. I mean, it was during Vietnam, and I had a draft number that equated to 3. And a lot of folks don't know how the draft worked, but it was like a lottery system every first of the year, which they drew birthdays one after another. And usually, and so what they did is the first birthday that was drawn was going to go. And the same thing was true with number 3. My year, I think they went all the way up to about 190 picks. So I was definitely going to go to Vietnam. And so I enlisted in a naval officer program and spent 3 years. And the first half of that was in the combat zone off the coast of Vietnam. So I was very proud to serve my country. But I didn't get to run during most of that time period.
There's not a lot of room to run on a boat, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, especially back then. Now today
they would have treadmills and workout rooms and.
No, they didn't have any of that. I was on an oiler that refueled ships at sea, and so we had pipes and hoses just all over the decks, along with supplies. There was no stretch where you could run on that ship, and so anyway, I really got seriously out of shape during the first 18 months of my Navy career.
Mm-hmm. So you moved on from the Navy to FSU, is that correct?
Yes, and the way that happened was I came back to graduated in '67 from Wesleyan in Connecticut, by the way, and then I went I went back home in 1970, and that just happened to be the first year of the Peachtree Road Race, so I got in good enough shape to be able to win that. At the same time, I was looking into graduate school to use up my GI Bill eligibility, and I chose Florida State in order to join the Florida Track Club, which my friend Frank Shorter was one of the charter members. I became the third member of that club. The other member at the time I joined was Jack Batchelor, who had been on the 1968 Olympic team. So he was our veteran, and he really gave us a lot of insights into what it was like at the world-class level. But honestly, when I went down to Florida State and started my trek, my goal was simply to try to qualify to get into the Olympic trials. I had no visions that I would actually make the team. I just wanted to push myself up, and I had a long way to go. After 3 years in the Navy, I'd gotten out of shape, and I was about over 4 minutes improvement needed in order to get into the 10K trials, and about 10 minutes needed for the marathon trials. But I got both of them in 1972. It was a close call on the 10K, but I did qualify 2 weeks before the Olympic trials.
It sounds like you're a real competitor. I mean, to come back from the Navy overweight and haven't ran in 3 years and to get back into it and have such lofty goals, I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Well, I've been able to focus real well. And the other benefit that I received is meeting really good people at every stage of my running career. And Jack Batchelor and Frank Shorter are two of them. Amby and Bill Rogers, another two. I early on met Bill Bowerman because my best friend in life I met at Navy Officer Candidate School, and he ended up being the number 3 employee at Nike. Jeff Hollister is his name, and Jeff took me in when I was on the West Coast before I flew over to Vietnam. And at that time, I met Bill Bowerman in 1967. He became my Olympic coach.
Hey, I watched one of your videos, and I saw where you told this really neat story about Jack Butler and yourself, and you talked about how he had gotten ill prior to or during the Olympic trials, and he wasn't really. Was he really the marathoner in that, or were you the marathoner? And I know you helped him out to get into the Olympic trials, which was a great, what a phenomenal friendship there. I mean, to do that.
Well, we did have a very strong friendship. I mean, I owed a lot to Jack as being the founder of our Florida Track Club, and Frank for setting me up with a place to train at altitude for 2 months prior to the Olympic trials, which I totally believe is what enabled me to make that last push that I had to have in order to qualify. But the story, you want me to tell the story?
I was going to ask you to recount that if you want. It's such a great story. I'd love to hear it again.
Well, I did not expect to make the team in the 10K. And in 1972, Bill Bowerman wanted to run the schedule that was going to be run in Munich. And what that meant was that the trials for the 10K and then the 10K final were run 1 week before the marathon trials. And he took a lot of flack for that. People said all over the U.S. that you're not going to get the best marathoners if you do that. So anyway, that was what we had to do. Well, I qualified in the National AAU Championships 2 weeks before the Olympic trials. And so I was in, but in that race, I was ranked about 12th. And so it was very unlikely that I was going to make the team, but it was a very hot day and I had been training for 2 years in Tallahassee. And, and before that, I had been living on a ship in the Philippines and Vietnam. And so, I was heat acclimatized and I also knew the dangers of going out too fast. So, I stayed back in last place for the first mile of that 10K. and then started picking runners off who had gone out too fast in the heat. And at about 4.5 miles, I was just playing the game of stalking the next guy ahead of me and then passing him. And I got up to that 4.5 mile mark and decided I'd better figure out where I was in this race. And I looked about 200 yards ahead, and Frank, my teammate Frank Shorter, was there. And then about 100 meters back was Jack Batchelor. And so, gosh, I must be up pretty far. I wonder, it must be about 6th or 8th place. Well, I was third. I had moved myself up into qualifying position without really knowing it, and I caught Jack, who had gone out too fast, and passed him, and finished second. And it was just the most glorious experience I've ever had in my competitive career. But Frank was there at the finish. He had just finished, and so he and I cheered Jack on, who was in third place coming around the final curve. But a runner was closing on him and came off the curve, and the crowd was egging him on because this runner was the son of the mayor of Eugene, Oregon, where the trials were being held. And so everybody in the stands was really cheering him on, and he was responding to this. Well, he passed Jack with about 30, 40 yards to go, but Jack was out of it. He was exhausted, and he was weaving, and he bumped this fellow, John Anderson, nice guy, but he bumped him inadvertently, and an official disqualified Jack from the race. Now, the significance there is that 1 week later, if I would have qualified in the marathon, I would have given up my place in the 10K, but that was no longer possible. So Jack and I conspired in our training runs all week as to a strategy that could get him qualified. And we set a pace that we thought would do that, and we practiced it and so forth. And Jack had two things going against him. First of all, he didn't think he was going to have to run the marathon. And so he hadn't run anything longer than 17 miles. And at the world-class level, the Olympic level, that really is not enough. And then the second thing he had going against him is that he just tended to go out way too fast. Well, I was different. I was a metronome in terms of pacing. And I had this whole concept that had been forged in training that I knew that I had to run more than 26 miles. And in this case, I had actually run 33 miles. And it was because I made a mistake on my last training run 3 weeks before. So I knew that I had a really good shot at the marathon. It was another hot day, and I ran with Jack and paced him, and we stayed right on pace through 15 miles. We were only 6 seconds off the pace. I was very proud of that. And at that point, Jack was really starting to get tired, so we slowed down a little. We were in 6th place. We had moved from 100th place at the mile to 61st place at 5 miles, and we just kept passing people from that point on. And at 15 miles, we were in 6th place, kept passing people, and at 21 miles, we moved into a tie for 3rd place. So during the last 5 miles, I was Jack's cheerleader. I was the lookout to make sure nobody was coming up on us. And I also just had to keep him focused because he was really exhausted. Well, we enter that stadium and the crowd is on their feet because they see two guys coming in and only one is going to be able to qualify for the team. And I have never experienced anything like that. It was deafening and it was exciting. And the reality was that I was the only one in that stadium that knew how that race was going to end because Jack was exhausted. And I stayed right with Jack until the finish line. And I dropped back right at the finish line so he could be the official qualifier. And I'll have to tell you, the ability to help my really, really good friend Jack qualify for the Olympics was just a thrill to this day. It is. But it turns out that Bill Bowerman was right because that year in the Munich Olympics, the U.S. team finished better than any team has ever finished in the Olympics. So the scheduling issue was certainly no impediment to our performance in Munich. First, fourth, and Jack was ninth.
That's great. That's so selfless, Jeff. I mean, it says a lot about what kind of fellow you are, and your friendship with those guys and all. It's just an amazing story. Hey, let me ask you how the '72 Olympics actually affected you guys. I'm not really sure of the timeline here. Had you guys actually competed by the time that tragedy happened, or did y'all have to go on and compete after that? Because I'm not mistaken, there's like a 2-day shutdown when that occurred. And did the Olympics go on? Did you guys compete after the event?
Yeah, and by the way, I have a new podcast that really gets into my story, and it gets into Munich, the lead up to Munich, and it's simply called "You Can Do It" with Jeff Galloway and my son Weston Galloway. But to answer your question, my 10K had already been run before the incident occurred. The marathon was still about 5 days away, and my friend Steve Prefontaine still had his 5K to run also, and it really messed with his mind too, to not know how long they were going to delay. They ended up delaying 1 day, and it could have been more, and there was a lot of uncertainty right back in those days. But that I had already run my race, the 10K.
Yeah, I'm sure it's kind of hard to feel safe after something like that happens. How did Prefontaine and your other friend do? Did they go on to do pretty well?
Well, Pre was ready to run a good race, but he had not had a lot of experience in running against the Europeans, who were the toughest guys around at the time. And he had prepared to be, he knew that a number of those Europeans in the 5K were going to be able to beat him in a kick. So his strategy was to burn the kick out of them by running a fast last mile, a really hard last mile. And a lot of times that really does work if it doesn't burn out the one who's doing it. And unfortunately, Pre got tireder than he needed in order to pull off what he did. But it was his first Olympics, and he ended up finishing fourth. He was actually in third until the final yards of the race, but to him, third did not matter. He was going for the gold, and that was it. That's just the way Pre was. But it was quite an exciting race, and I truly believe that he would have been in the mix in Montreal had he lived and not had his accident. Right. But I believe he would have probably been in the 10K, because that was much more suited for the lack of an all-out kick that he had. The runner that year who was the star was Lasse Viren of Finland. And Lasse had a very good kick, but it was a subtle kick. He could pick up the pace with 2 laps to go to an amazing pace, but he was so smooth that you didn't know that he was running so fast. And when the runners tried to go with him, he was the one that burned their kick out.
Hey, I know gear has changed a lot these days, and we have these fancy running shoes and all this dry tech stuff. What were you running in back then? Had Nike come around? I guess it had by then, right?
My favorite was Nike, but Nike did not have a spike shoe in '72. So I ran all of my training runs in the marathon trials and so forth, in what was then called the Nike Boston. And it was really one of my favorite shoes of all time. Anyway, but on the track, I wore a pair of Adidas.
Adidas.
That's how they pronounce it.
You know, we talk about that sometimes, the pronunciation of shoes. Like Saucony.
Yeah, is it Saucony?
And
I can't even pronounce
is
that.
it Hoka One or Hoka 11? Or
Yeah, yeah. I haven't heard of that brand though, Jeff, but that's what you ran in.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And they were really the first premier line of running shoes, and they started out mostly as a track spike and a soccer cleat.
Now they're mostly soccer.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah. But they really got into training shoes, and they didn't have enough cushion. They were preparing training shoes for Europeans that were running on trails. And the hard sole they had was actually fine for trail running, but not for roads.
Hey Jeff, let me back up just a minute. I wanted to ask you something. When you were in high school, what was the running scene like back then? I mean, was there guys you looked up to then as runners, or was this just something you said, "Hey, I'm just going to go out and run and be as fast as I can be"?
Well, when I started as a fat eighth grader, I did not identify myself as a runner, certainly not as a distance runner. So as I got into it, I realized that there were very few people that ran distance. I mean, there were virtually, well, there weren't any women running distance in 1958 when I started, even throughout the 60s, because the federation, our AAU, National Federation, only allowed women to run up to 800 meters. It's hard to believe now, but that was the rule. And so you didn't see women running distances. Now, the other big shift back then is that there were almost no male runners over the age of 21 or 22. Once the runners reached college age and weren't able to go on, they didn't go on. And so you didn't see any, hardly ever would you see anybody over 40 years old running. I mean, it was something that wasn't thought of. In my case, I was in running for what it did for my good attitude circuit in the brain, the vitality circuit, and the personal empowerment circuit. And when I wrote my book, Mental Training, I found all types of research showing that running elevates those circuits to the highest level. But I didn't need to know that. I learned that during my first week of running, and it's been that way ever since. So I was in it. But most of the runners who were in high school and college distance running were in it for the competition. And when that was either not available anymore or they stopped improving, they stopped running.
Right. We have the ability to be motivated by watching YouTube videos and reading about all our heroes and that sort of thing. So I can just imagine how tough it must have been to be good.
And
back
there probably wasn't a whole lot of, you know, nowadays, well, pre-COVID, there's marathons in some part of the country every weekend.
Right.
You know, back then, how often did somebody say, "Hey, let's go run 22 miles," and everybody gets a medal, and you know. Yeah,
you know the running groups and cliques that exist now just probably wasn't a thing back then. I wouldn't imagine. I mean, I guess in high school, yeah.
I would be willing to guess that there were less than 10 marathons around the country, and only one of them did you know would be run every year, and that was the Boston Marathon. But the other ones would come and go, and the only area of the country that had a regular circuit of road running was in New England. And again, I was fortunate enough to be there. And so my friend Amby and I would regularly sneak out on weekends and go to a road race somewhere in New England, where you could find a road race somewhere every weekend, and you could not find that in other parts of the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed. The whole running thing has just changed so much. But thank goodness. I mean, because so many people are out running now. Yeah. Jeff, I tell you, when I was young, I remember me and my father watching the Olympics in the 70s on TV, and we were utterly amazed to watch guys run 26.2 miles. I mean, I never in my wildest dreams would ever imagine that one day I would run, a marathon.
Well, it certainly is something that that kids look at as being arduous and almost impossible to do, especially if you look at the paces that the lead runners are doing. In my era, I got into the habit of going up to my track coach's room, his classroom, in breaks, and looking at the track and field news results of various events. And it sort of became a game. Is there an event anywhere that I have a dream shot of making the Olympics? And there really wasn't, based on my times. My times during my first couple of years for 1 mile were what the runners were running in the marathon. The lead runners in the world were running the marathon. I couldn't imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I was going to, a race is very important to me that I love to do, not because it's fun, not because, and you know what I'm going to say, Peachtree Road Race. I mean, I'm involved in a clique there in Tiffin. I work out of town. We're here in Valdosta for this, but I work out of town, and we've got a great running group over there, and we all run the Peachtree Road Race. And I think I told you that I met you a few years ago there, and you're such a nice fella. But and I was an honor to meet you. But we run that every year. That's just a thing for us. And there's 2 guys in our group, David Van and Ernest Lang. This year, if they do the virtual, it'll be 42 years in a row for those guys, and it's just amazing. But it's so much excitement in that race. I'm gonna get Rob to run it with me one day. I want to get him out there. But just to see that thing. I know you won the first one, and what was that? 12,000 people for the first one, or was it less than that?
110.
Oh my goodness, I was way off.
110 people.
Folks. Holy smokes!
Yeah, and there weren't any really, nationally ranked runners in it. That's why I won, because I was not even close to nationally ranked at the time, but it was a thrill, and it was really something. But I have to interrupt by saying that I do have a South Georgia connection, because my father was from Moultrie, and
just up
the road, yeah.
Yeah, and when he was at sea during my first 13 years of life, my mom would take us either to Moultrie or to Raleigh, where her parents were, and we would stay with one set of grandparents or the other. And I spent a number of my school periods during that era in Moultrie, so I'm very much attuned to the South Georgia.
Right up the
road.
The
South Georgia humidity.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, Tallahassee is
with hills.
Yeah.
By the way, you may not know this, but I put on running retreats on the Florida Panhandle between Destin and Panama City, a little area called Blue Mountain Beach. It's near Seaside and Grayton Beach.
Oh yeah, I love Seaside and Grayton.
But it's just beautiful. The Point Washington State Park has about 200 miles of pine straw trails, and of course we have our beautiful beach to run on. We've actually got one of our retreats going on next weekend. So,
really?
Yeah, we do those about usually before COVID, we did them about 6 times a year, and we hope to get back to that. Now we're, of course, observing the social distance guidelines and doing our clinics outdoors. But of course, this time of year, it's fine to do that.
But you know what? They said that, COVID doesn't, transfer as far when you're outdoors, and they say sunlight also helps, So there's no better sport to participate in during COVID than running,
That's right, yeah, absolutely. Jeff, when did you become a sponsor or a organizer for Peachtree?
Okay, so I went to graduate school at Florida State. I was there for 2 years and made the Olympic team, but right after the Olympics, I taught school for a year in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I realized that classroom teaching was not for me. So I wanted to do something that would bring others into running and do some of the wonderful things for them that I received from it to pass it on. So I decided to open a running store. And Tallahassee was my favorite training area, Apalachicola National Forest there.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back there and I opened my store on a shoestring. It was the very first running specialty store in the United States. And we are still alive. It's a struggle these days, but it's called Fidipides. I named the store after the guy that founded our sport.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know he was doing it, but he did. And it was it's just a wonderful experience to go in the store now and see how our staff can find the right shoe and the right clothing for people and help them, and also help them with training programs and so forth too. But that's how the store thing actually started.
Right. I saw there was a big jump in the attendance to that when you got Frank and I can't remember who the other runner was, but was it Jack that you got to come participate in Peachtree? Am I right about that?
Yes, but so when I moved back to Tallahassee, I got the store started, but in '75, things were starting to really improve in running in Atlanta. So I had a partner at the time. We split the stock, and I moved my half of it up to Atlanta, and that was at the time when the race director, who had been the race director from the beginning, Tim Singleton, was moving to Texas, and he came in the store, and he's an old friend. I knew him from high school days, and he said that he really needed my help to continue with the leadership of the race. So I became the assistant race director under Bill Neese, who was a professor at Emory University, and he and I worked together over the next 3 years. We built the race from 1,200 to 12,000 in 3 years.
Yeah, that's quite a jump.
Yeah.
I think you did good.
It's the biggest
it's
the biggest 10K in the world now.
We had I give credit where credit is due. It really was the promotional efforts of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. We were able to enlist them as a sponsor. They had not been a sponsor before, but Bill knew a guy who was a young executive there at the AJC at the time, a guy named Jim Kennedy. And Jim actually worked his way up and became the chairman of the board of Cox Enterprises, the parent company. But at the time, he was an up-and-comer in the organization, and he saw immediately the potential for Peachtree. And so he helped us get the promotional muscle behind Peachtree at the AJC and WSB TV and radio. And that really is what caused the dramatic increase. We just put on a good race, and I brought in the elite athletes, and things took off.
It's amazing what behemoth has come. I mean, it's, for such a large city, they kind of just shut all this stuff down so this race can take place. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something you gotta just participate in, and you gotta experience. It is an experience.
One day I will.
We're gonna get to that. Jeff, it's the largest 10K in the world, right? We've kind of isn't there one out in Colorado or something that kind of we kind of gone back and forth with a couple of times?
No, that's Boulder.
I thought they hit like 50,000 one time, and
I think they got 50,000 one time, but 65,000 at Peachtree.
Yeah. And there's a great deal of people that actually run it. It's not just a number out there. I mean, I know you don't quite hit 65 every time, but there's generally the largest portion of that runs the race.
Yeah, there are a lot of walkers these days, and that's great.
I should say participates. I'm sorry, yeah.
Because it draws in people who never would have thought that they would be able to go a 10K. And we, at my Galloway Productions, and jeffgalloway.com provide a lot of training programs for the 10K. So we are able to help a lot of people who are entry level, and that they go on to do some amazing things.
Do you run it every year?
Yes, every year that I can. I've had a few lapses due to things like the Olympics and the Pan American trials and racing in Europe during the summer. But most of the years I have run since 1970.
What corral do you start in? Can we ask that? What corral do you start in, Jeff?
How's that?
What corral do you start in? Does it vary?
Well,
It
I
varies.
don't run that fast anymore, and I don't need to. So my wife and I run together, and
Right.
we are sometimes we're actually pretty far back. But I don't even remember the last corral we were in. It wasn't up at the front.
Hey, are you still involved with Run Disney or Disney Runs?
Yes, of course, things are in hiatus right now,
Right.
but I'm the official training consultant for the Run Disney series, and very proud to do that. It's really a wonderful series of weekends, and also race director for the Jeff Galloway 13.1 in December, which we're still hoping to be able to pull off as an actual, but of course we'll abide by the local regulations as it gets closer to that. And we have a virtual race with some really good medals too.
Yes. So when did you start wanting to train other runners?
It was it started in 1970 when I got out of the Navy. Another friend of mine in Atlanta was the track coach at Georgia Tech. Buddy Folks is his name, and Buddy and I ran into one another when I was registering to do some graduate work, and he said, "You need to come to my office because I've got a proposition for you." And what it was to be the assistant coach for distance runners on his team at Georgia Tech, which I accepted in 1970. So I I trained the distance runners there at Georgia Tech. That was my first official coaching position, and then when I opened my store in '73, the year after the Olympics, I started coaching runners in a variety of different ways.
And everybody, I think, how many lives have you changed through the Galloway method? I mean, if you changed a whole course of marathoning with the Galloway method,
Yeah,
I believe.
the run, walk, run. Yeah, that's
The run, walk, run. And when did you come up with that idea?
Were you just running along one day and said, "Hey, you know what? If I walked a little while, I could probably finish a little faster."
Nope, it was the first year that my store was opened. A guy came in who was the director of a series of courses that FSU offered to the general community in Tallahassee. So people could just come in not for credit. And so he said, "Hey, why don't you teach a course in beginning running?" And 22 signed up for the first class. I realized right away that none of them had been doing any running, so I needed to put walk breaks into the workouts. And I went out. I had a meet at my store on different days for the workouts so that I could run with them. And what I was listening for is huffing and puffing, which I still use today in a lot of beginning classes. And so when somebody in one of the pace groups started to huff and puff, we walked. And at the end of the 10-week class, all 22 finished either a 5K or a 10K. And some of those people were just totally out of shape when they started. But the thing that amazed me most is there were no injuries at all during those 10 weeks. And I'd never been with a group of more than 20 runners for 2 months in which there were no injuries. And I realized that it was the walk breaks that kept them from injury. And that's absolutely true today. Because if you run nonstop, you're actually doing something that we weren't designed to do, according to the anthropologist. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be some distance that nonstop running is going to cause an injury. So from that point in 1974, when I started using Run, Walk, Run, we have evolved the method. I have no idea how many people. I have personally talked to over 500,000 runners who I've given advice to, and they got back to me to tell me how it worked. So that figure I know. But you go on the internet, and my books have sold over 1 million copies. And so, it's millions of people, but I have no handle and never will. And it doesn't even matter, because it's helping people get into an amazing habit that can improve the quality of their lives and the others that they promote it to.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the toughest things for people who are runners is to kind of adapt themselves to that. I'm going to walk for a little while, but one thing I've noticed is when I see people doing that on the course is they're getting it. When they're running, they're moving along pretty good. And then, they're walking, pretty swiftly too. I think that's probably the hardest thing for some people to do. And I've got some buddies now that are adapting your program right now, and they're going from doing just running to run, walk. And, that's something they're having to get used to. But I know some people that's actually done that, and as you said, I have said, hey, I've actually PR'd and that sort of thing by doing that. And I watched a town hall that you did. I don't know how old it was, but it was a gentleman that spoke who'd been in an accident, and he was injured. And, he talked about when he started doing that, he took 12 minutes off of his time.
Well, again, once you've talked to 500,000 people, and I've spent years sorting through what types of Run, Walk, Run works best for the pace that an individual is running. But what we found in the data is that with the right Run, Walk, Run, almost anybody can be injury-free. Do you want to be injury-free?
Yes, please.
Better not run nonstop, because the number one reason why distance runners get injured is that they run nonstop. So, the first thing is you can be injury-free with Run, Walk, Run. But the second thing is you'll run faster. And the reason, and we've done the studies on this, in a half marathon, the average improvement when a nonstop runner finds the right Run, Walk, Run is over 7 minutes faster in a half marathon. And in a marathon, it's over 13 minutes faster. And the reason is that if you run nonstop, you're going to slow down at the end, and you'll be passed by the Run, Walk, Runners.
I've been passed by many Run, Walk, Runners.
Yeah.
Well, you can be one of the passers if you want.
And what the funny thing is you start getting passed by the Run, Walk, Runners, and you catch them on a walk, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to walk. And then they start running faster, and you're like, no.
I think it's definitely a program you have to do. You just can't just say, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to pick it up today while I'm out running a race. You've got to get used to it. In fact, one of my friends I'm running with now, well, I've got two buddies who are doing it, and one of them has already said, look, I recover much faster. I feel much better. My knees quit hurting, all those sort of things. So definitely there's something to it.
Well, I will never try to drag anyone kicking and screaming into my method, but the results speak for themselves, and you have improvement ahead and injury-free time ahead if you want to try it.
Hey, let me ask you this, Jeff, and not to be controversial or anything, but just to ask. I mean, like a world-class runner who runs marathons or whatever, I guess a marathon. I mean, is that something you would suggest to somebody like that?
Well, I will tell you by my story, and that is that I had taught Run, Walk, Run from 1973 until 1978, but I had never used it in a race before until 1980. But in 78, I was having a series of lingering injuries, and my times were slowing down. And I just thought that it could be possible that I was not going to run any more PRs. And at first, that was sort of a downer. But then I realized that if I could run injury-free and enjoy running for the rest of my life, that would be a huge deal. So I started using Run, Walk, Run on all my runs in 1978. And surprisingly, in the Houston Marathon in 1980, I set my lifetime PR And I used a walk break every 2 miles because that's where the water stops were. And I had never done that before, but I ran over 2 minute PR by using run, walk, run.
So it works.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know what? It works and it helps the masses. I mean, there's probably some. I mean, when you talk about world class athletes, you talk about Meb and all those guys are genetically, in my opinion, I don't know about Jeff's opinion, genetically different. And that's great. But when you can take the average person and give them a plan and get them through 26.2 or 5K or 10K, whatever they want, that means the world. And it makes a world. I mean, how many people are competing in marathons these days who thought they could never do anything like that before?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good
Well,
point.
yeah, if you go to any major marathon, it's an extremely high percentage that are using my method. It's estimated to be about 90% in the major marathons.
Now, running in general, you kind of promote an easier kind of method, right? I mean, don't go out and kill yourself. Don't run too hard. Just, I think you said that you do a long run every other week. Is that correct?
Well, every other week is all you need to do on a long run. As a matter of fact, once the long run reaches 16 miles, you can do the long run every 3 weeks.
And then as far as your everyday running, you should take it easy, back off.
Well, if you're just going to finish, the minimum in between the long runs is only 30 minutes every other day. And again, we've had hundreds of thousands who've gone through that program successfully. So it's not a theory. It's
Right.
definitely proven.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, when you're out on the road running, what do you think about? What are the things that come to mind? Do you think about the next thing you're going to do? You think about past runs?
Anything and everything. I'll usually start a run focusing on what I'm going to do for that day. I learned that from Frank Shorter. He was a cognitive runner, and my book Mental Training. When I discovered the mental training techniques and what made them work, Frank was one who illustrated strongly that cognitive strategies will keep you in your human brain and keep you away from the ancient emotional brain, which under stress will secrete negative hormones. So I always try to think of something positive. I have several positive mantras in case I start to not feel so good. And, uh, and then I'll go from one thought to the next. It's just a whole variety of different thoughts, and it could be anything and everything. But I try to spend most of my time running in the moment, looking around, running here today in along 30A area in Panhandle, Florida. I was looking at the ocean. I was hearing it. I saw wildlife around, birds and lizards and things like that. And it's always invigorating to be part of the environment. That's one of the great things that you will experience as a distance runner.
I agree. When I'm out running sometimes, I don't like to run by myself. I prefer to run with the group, and probably most everybody does. But occasionally I get stuck having to do it. And I know sometimes when I'm out running, there's those days when I think, oh my God, every step just hurts. I just don't want to do this. It's so rough. But there's other days when I just really get into deep thought. And, the next thing I know, a 6 mile course is behind you. I've just got into some deep thought. And it's like, I don't even remember passing these landmarks. So definitely there's something to the mental aspect of it. It's just,
And one of the things that helps that latter good feeling happen is a cognitive strategy. For example, with our run, walk, run, you're focusing on how much you're going to run and how much you're going to walk. We have the beeping timers that tell you when to do that. So you're mentally focused on that. And that means that ancient emotional brain is not secreting the negative hormones when you get under stress.
That's deep.
it is. It is. I mean, running is such a mental thing, because your body, you're in shape. If you're running on a regular basis, you're in condition to do it. It's just,
Mhm.
sometimes just making yourself do it.
And that's the one thing that you talk people about running, and which running coaches have it hard, in my personal opinion, because you can I mean, like, if I teach you how to shoot a basketball, I can show you the form and I can tell you whether you're doing it right. But when you're out there running, it's like I can't get in your brain and make you go faster,
right,
or make you run longer, or make you push yourself, and I cannot. It's hard to tell exactly how much you're pushing, your personal abilities. You understand?
No, definitely. I understand what you mean. It's funny because when you're out there running, you hit waves, because I can be running along at a pretty good pace, and then I'm just exhausted, and then I'll slow down. The next thing I know, I'm running along at another pretty good pace. And when I've ran marathons in the past, I guess it happens to everybody. But you're at this point where you say, man, I don't know how much I got left. And the next thing you know, you're feeling pretty good. And then you're like, I think I need to sit down, It's a funny thing you go through, I think. And that's part of the enjoyment to me. I love the mental aspect of it and trying to balance that. And, and then the accomplishment and the satisfaction you get when you're done it's amazing.
So how many marathons do you think you've run over your lifetime? Do you keep track?
Yes, 234.
Good
234.
night. Wow.
When was the last one you ran?
Before COVID hit, it was the Cowtown Marathon on the 1st of March.
Okay. So that's a lot of marathons. Do you have plans to run more?
Oh, absolutely. Before COVID hit, my wife Barbara and I, we run together, you see, but we were averaging close to a marathon every month.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm 75 years old, and there's no way I could do that if I was running nonstop. But with Run, Walk, Run, you can do it. You can run a marathon, and you can get out and run, train and run the next day. And it's amazing. It's fantastic.
So your wife is your training partner?
Yes.
And are there times that she has to kick you and tell you to get up out of bed?
Never. I'm the early riser.
Well, Jeff, I'm 57, and I'm still running. And I mean, tell us a little bit about how things change for you as you age. I mean, what can you expect? I know you're going to get slower. Just no two ways about it. I mean, is it? Let's just say I'm going, like, I know you don't know anything about my training or anything, but I mean, I can continue to run marathons. I mean, you're doing it, but you're a phenomenal runner. But for the average person, how long can I imagine I can just keep on going, staying healthy?
Well, it depends on.
Did we lose him? Let's see.
And,
okay, we're back.
Okay.
We kind of froze up a little bit.
A book that I have written is Running Until You're 100.
Uh-huh.
And the number one thing that will help you do that is the right run, walk, run. And you have to keep adjusting it as you get older, because your muscles lose their performance capabilities with each year after age 50. And when you get up to where I am at 75, you lose a significant amount every year. So it's harder to run fast. But if you have the right run, walk, run, I think almost everybody can run until they're 100.
Now, with that run, walk, run, all your runs feel relatively consistent? Like, say, every marathon, do you feel consistent? I mean, you have the same. I mean, do you feel relatively the same after each marathon? You feel pretty good?
Well, the one factor that we all have to deal with is the heat. And no, I don't feel the same after every one, because on hot days, I don't feel good at the end either, but I can get through it, and I can get through the marathons with strength, even when it's hot, with run, walk, run. And one reason is you don't raise your core body temperature as much with the walk breaks from the beginning like that. But if it's a 60-degree day, feel strong all the way. I'm not able to run fast, like I used to, but I don't care about that. Unfortunately, speed is one thing that causes a lot of injuries that cause people to drop out of running.
Right. I never really thought about it before, but I'm curious. Do you think this Couch to 5K program kind of come off of your program a little bit, maybe?
Oh yeah, they copied it, but they did not know what it was about, and it's actually a terrible program. And the reason is that they're trying to push people to run nonstop. And
Right.
I've talked to thousands who had to drop out of that program. And the sad thing is, these folks that they're going to reach a point of failure. I mean, a beginner will reach a point of failure if you try to get that beginner to get up to nonstop running. And half the people that try it can't even make it halfway through, and they consider themselves unable to run as a result of that. And that's not what the lesson should be. So, no, I'm not a fan of that. Unfortunately, that burns a lot of runners out. On the other hand, I have an app put out by Lolo Fit that you can dial in your run, walk, run, and you get coached by me throughout, and people love that app.
What's the name of the app again?
It's put out by Lolo Fit, LOLOFIT.
Lolo Fit. Yeah, Mike. Because that's what I need. I need an app to tell me what to do these days. Everybody needs one.
Jeff, what's your thoughts on treadmills?
Well, I mean, if you have to run on them, I'm personally not a fan, but I know a lot of people who won't get in very many runs during a year unless they have a treadmill. So you're going to get about the same thing. You can usually figure out the controls on a treadmill to get the same type of workout that you would if you were running outside.
Do you take days off?
I do. I'm not obsessive about it, but if I get a chance to run, I'm out there running most days during the year. I might not run for between 10 and 15 days a year.
What do you think about streaks? People who run 5-year, 1-year streaks and that sort of thing. Is that
Well, a lot of people get burned out when doing that. So it's psychologically challenging for a lot of people. And but if you're motivated by that and you're not having problems, also a lot of people get injured by running streaks, because on the days when they start to get an injury and they force themselves to run because of the streak, they can make the injury a lot worse.
Yeah, I did a 31-day streak during COVID when everything was closed, and I can say I felt bulletproof at like day 15, and I was ready to throw in the towel at day 31. So I went 31 days, and then I took some rest. I'd had all I wanted.
Yeah, well, we're each one of us in running is the captain of our running ship. So you can choose whatever you want to do. I have the advantage of having talked to those over 500,000 runners about problems that they've had and the solutions that have worked. So I just see the data patterns more clearly than most people would.
Now, do you cycle or lift weights or anything?
No, but I do have an elliptigo machine. Are you familiar with the elliptigo?
Yeah, I think so.
It's an elliptical bicycle. I put it up on a trainer, and I have it in my backyard. And we live in a forest, and so I'm looking at the animals and the birds while I'm doing my elliptigo workout.
What is your favorite all-time race? Because I know you've been to probably a billion.
Been to a lot of them, over 1,000 races. Well, it just depends on they're in categories. So, I really don't have any one that I'd say this is the number one over all categories. But there are scenic categories. There are fun categories. The fun category is definitely one by the Disney races. They really make it fun, and they know how to do that better than anybody else.
I didn't really break that down on that Disney category. Is that the Goofy and all that series of races that you're involved in?
Yes, they currently have, once things get back on track, 4 races at Disney World a year per year, and hopefully the Disneyland races will go back. But Disneyland is closed, and so they're going to have a long time to ramp up there to do the races. But uh, Walt Disney World Marathon weekend with the 5K, 10K, half, and full the same weekend is still, they think, is still going to go on. But we don't know for sure because there are a lot of variables there.
Now, because you did the 10K and the marathon, which one would you say was your best distance? On any given Saturday, you're going to run a race to win. Which one are you choosing?
Well, it was definitely the marathon. I was a better marathoner than I was a 10K runner.
And which one's tougher?
Well, it depends on how you run it, but the marathon is tougher. I mean, nobody really conquers the marathon. You have to just do the best you can, and the guy who hangs on long enough usually ends up the winner once you have the appropriate ability level there.
You know, Todd Smoot told me kind of the same thing. He felt that way about the marathon. He said he thought it was just the ultimate event. You know, I know there's longer events and that sort of thing, but an event that, you know, that you can actually get a hold of and control and run. You know, he thought that was probably, and I hope I'm not misquoting this, Todd. If I am, just, you know, you can tell me later. But he thought like the marathon is the ultimate event, distance wise.
It's probably, well, besides the half, probably the most popular. And
Yeah.
you know, I think it's something that's doable, but really darn hard.
Well, it's challenging. That's one thing I do like about it is, you know, it really takes a lot of training. And I always tell these guys that the training is my favorite part of it all. I mean, I like the race, but I love the training aspect of it. I love, you know, we talked about friendships and, you know, just how close you get in a running group. And that's one thing that really appeals to me. I like the families I have, you know, my Valdosta family and my Tifton family as far as running goes. And, you know, you forge a lot of really close friendships.
Have you heard about the group called Charge Running?
I haven't.
Well, we have joined forces with them for a training program that goes up to our half marathon on December 13th in Atlanta, or the virtual. And so we have a lot of people over the years who have wanted to run our race, but they just can't get to Atlanta. So that's why we put the virtual on. But we were looking for a way to have a virtual training program, and Charge does this in a really good way. What Charge Running is an app, and it's a subscription service, but you can dial in throughout the week to quite a few different workouts every day. And we have trained a number of their coaches to be certified in our Galloway method. So you can dial in a workout on any day of the week, and you're going to be coached through this. At the same time, you're seeing on your phone screen what the other runners are who are running with you from all over the world. It's
That's
really
cool.
energizing with music and coaching from the coaches. And in our case, if anybody is interested in getting back into the game of half marathon, we can get you there. And Charge Running does a fantastic job.
It's like
And
a
if you're
Zoom
interested,
meeting for running.
Yeah.
well, if you're interested in that, just go to jeffgalloway.com and scroll down to the bottom of the front page, and you'll see all of that.
Awesome.
Hey, Jeff, obviously all this life of fitness has given you a lot of energy because you got a lot going on.
Well, it's true, and the research documents that running turns on the circuits, as I said, for a better attitude, for empowerment, but also vitality,
Mm.
meaning that you can start a run feeling exhausted, and I'm not going to be able to run a mile, and you end up with 6, 8, 10, 15 miles, and you have more energy afterwards. It's the brain circuit that running turns on.
Now tell me what does your diet look like?
Well, my wife Barb has been a student of diet and healthy diet, and my daughter-in-law Carissa Galloway is a registered dietitian. So I have great advice in my family, and so to put it into simple format, we do not eat any red meat, nor have Barb and I eaten any red meat for over 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we do eat chicken and fish, but not in great quantities, maybe chicken 2 days a week and fish 2 or 3 days a week. And then the other days, plant-based nutrition.
Stay away from soft drinks, coffee, that sort of thing.
Say that again?
You stay away from soft drinks and that sort of thing.
Oh,
Sugars.
yeah. I don't take any sugar with one exception. I drink Defizz Coke during my marathons.
Defizz Coke.
It's the drink that I used when I was at the world class level, and I've not found anything that works better than that for boosting blood sugar during a marathon.
Well, you know what? I was running the Tallahassee Marathon, and this was when it was the out and back course, and I just remember a group of, I don't know if they were Marines or Army or whatever, and they were passing out cans of Coke, and that was the best darn Coke that I've ever had in my life.
It works,
and it helped. I mean, this was fizzed. I didn't,
Yeah.
But,
I think
you should be trying it out in your training before you try it in a race. But
it
works.
Well, but yeah, it was delicious, and it gave me that boost. I don't know. It's just like maybe I could just taste one at the end. I don't know, but it really helped me out that day.
Definitely. Jeff, you've got so many things going on. Is there anything you want to announce while you're on the show? I know you've told us a lot about a lot of things you have happening. Anything you want to announce?
We have a lot of free resources on my website, jeffgalloway.com, including a prediction function there that is called the Magic Mile. And it can tell you, based on running a 1 mile time trial, what your current potential would be. And then you can set up the appropriate paces. My books, when ordered from my website, come to you autographed. So if you're interested in any one of my 32 books that get into the various aspects of running, I'd love to help you. You can also ask me any question that you would like. Just go to the website and there's a free email service there. And I'm there for you. I'm there to help. Currently, one of the new things we're offering is a 60-day challenge. And you can sign up to cover 60 miles in 60 days, or 120 miles in 60 days, or 180 miles in 60 days. And the rewards are different for each level. But it's one of these things where you log in, you can see the leaderboard, and it helps to motivate those who are not able to get to races now and really want something out there that gives them some accountability.
Well, this has been amazing. I mean, you cannot go to a marathon in the United States without seeing people that have been directly influenced by Jeff Galloway. In just how much he's been through in his life, an Olympian, and tied with the South Georgia roots and with the Peachtree Road Race, and the person, I mean, when you talk about running, I'm sure there's people out there that are Usain Bolt and Meb, but this is Jeff Galloway, who's reached millions and millions and millions of people, and he's been on our show today. And does it get any bigger?
Man, I don't know what to say. I tell you, I'm still reeling a little bit when he even came on with us. When I was telling my friends, we've got Jeff Galloway coming, I was like, come on, you're kidding. I said, no, seriously, because we are a small-time operation, Jeff, and I mean, this means the world to us. It really does, and we've enjoyed talking to you. So informative, And,
I have enjoyed it too, and I am honored by what y'all are doing. Keep up your good work.
Thank you. Thank you
We
so
started this show kind of with this. We just want people to get out there and get active and learn from people who've been there, who've done it, and your method of training has affected so many people and got so many people, which we're not going to say off the couch because that's the but got people moving. People when people ask me like, how do I start running? I just say, put one foot in front of the other and you can get out there. Just get moving and don't worry about anything else. And I think that's the key to his program is, you don't have to run a mile before you can tell yourself you're a runner. You don't have to run a mile straight. Run, walk, run. Just get the body moving.
Hey, Jeff, it's all right with you. In future episodes, we'll mention some of the things you have going on.
Oh, absolutely. I'd appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
And tell us the name of your podcast again, because I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, I want to hear that. Yeah, absolutely.
It's simple. You can do it.
You can do it. And that can be found on, I suppose, iTunes and Spotify and all that
primarily
good stuff.
iTunes, but if you'll Google that, or you can go to jeffgalloway.com, and on the front page, there is a click on to be able to go to it.
All righty. Well, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a great evening.
Same to y'all, and let me know if I can help.
Sure will. Thanks a million.
Right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, let's see if we can end this.
Wow, that was great.
Mr. Jeff Galloway.
Gosh, that was amazing, man.
Well, we're still on the air, so put on your.
We're still on.
That I don't know how we follow up with Jeff Galloway.
Oh my gosh!
But a lot of information there, and I'm gonna have to go back and probably rewatch the episode, which he talked about the low something app and the Charge app.
Yeah, we can go to his webpage and get all that information, and we'll definitely
the podcast. I want to listen to his podcast because I want to hear the things that he's had to say about controlling the mind. I don't. That's not the way he said it, but
he's got a book out there. He said, about mental toughness and such. So we need to get our facts straight on that and maybe bring that up again.
Yeah,
and
because I would be, that's the one part I think that I lack at times. As much as I think that I do have it because I can get up every day and I can go running. Sometimes I don't think that it's always a question. About what my body can do, what I can do. Should I be running more? Am I telling myself that I need to? Is my own brain holding myself back?
Well, at face value, you can do it. I mean, it's just, do you want to do it? That's the thing, But he also talks about the Munich experience on his podcast. I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that.
That would be awesome.
A legend.
You can't do it. Well, we'll be back next week.
Sounds good.
Probably the same time, around the same place. Around the same time, or at the same place. But I hope y'all enjoyed that. Please like and share and subscribe and do all that kind of good stuff. You can catch us on Instagram. We do have a Facebook page. That's where we broadcast from every week. And we do have a YouTube channel, so you can check us out there. But if you enjoy the show, if you want to see us get more good guests, good quality guests, which we've had some great guests. We've had amazing guests.
Oh, I've enjoyed it.
But if you want us to reach out to bigger and better guests, please hit the like and subscribe button, because that just kind of validates that we put on a decent product. So anything else?
That's all. Thanks, Jeff Galloway.
All righty. Y'all have a good one.